Welcome to Globe Watch with me, Charles Ebune, broadcasting from Studio 2 of our Cameroon Radio Television Global Operations Center here in Balatu, Yaoundé, Cameroon. Africa accounts for at least 5% of France's exports, and at least 240,000 of our citizens lives in Africa, where almost half of France's 12,000 peacekeepers involved in international peace operations are found. Due to history, strategically, France considers Africa, according to some experts, as a pre-carré space, encouraging one French lawmaker, André Doulet, to say, and I quote, "The African continent is our neighbor, and when it is shaken by conflict, we are also shaken. With new mounting security threats in the name of terrorism in the likes of Boko Haram, Al-Shabaab, Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, and wars spread across the continent, what can France offer to Africa in the so highly needed security pact assurance?" My guest today speaks on behalf of the French government to you, wherever you are watching us. France's ambassador to Cameroon, Christine Robichon, welcome to Globe Watch.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation to CRTV.
You're welcome, madam. Let me start with a 2013 report by the U.S. State Department. It says, and I quote halfway, "Significant levels of terrorist activity in Africa were registered in 2013. And it goes further. Boko Haram maintain a high operational tempo in Africa. This is a huge security threat. Let us get the official perception of Paris on the security situation in Africa today."
Well, what we see both in Africa and in the Middle East is that we have a transformation in the terrorism activities. We have still terrorist violences committed by small cells of people aiming at destabilizing countries and frightening populations. We saw an example in the past days with bombing which killed 6 policemen in Egypt, for example. But we see at the same time another type of terrorism which seems to be rising, and it's a real important concern. We see groups, large groups of well-equipped terrorists fighting regular armies, ignoring borders, and trying to keep territories and populations under their control, and even to create states.
Okay.
That's something
like the Islamic State wants to do in Syria and
Daesh
Iraq.
In Syria and Iraq. They announced their intention to create a so-called caliphate in the name of Islam, while they are not a state and they are not Islamic.
Okay. According to France, who should take responsibility for this? For this increasing militancy?
This is a global issue, a global problem, which requires a global response.
If the French government was to outline just one cause of the increase of terrorism in the world, what would the French government say?
There are multiple causes. There are multiple causes. The causes are not the same in the different parts of the world where terrorism exists. And, but it has to be fought everywhere, And because there are links between terrorist groups, and there are links between terrorist groups and organized crime and all kind of trafficking, human being trafficking, weapons trafficking, drugs trafficking. There is a need for a global response to fight simultaneously terrorism and these traffickings, which are providing resources. Yeah.
You are talking of a global response. Let me read a comment to you from your Defense Minister, Jean-Yves Le Drian. He was talking, this is a comment around last May. He said there will be 3,000 French troops in the Sahel-Sahara zone, the danger zone, the zone of all types of smuggling. Why does France consider the Sahel area a danger zone? And what are the military contributions you are undertaking to stabilize it?
We do not consider it as a dangerous zone.
That is a comment from your defense minister.
It is. It is. It's a reality. It's not a French perception. It's a reality that, and we and the countries in the region are fully aware of this and fully aware of the development during the past decades of trafficking along this Sahelo-Saharan strip, and from Mauritania to Chad and Libya. And because France was involved in Mali, at the request of Mali, Mali in 2012 was, the state of Mali was threatened by different terrorist groups.
The advance from the north.
Which were forming a kind of coalition and were progressing, marching towards the south, threatening the capital city and threatening the state. And the president of Mali called the president of France for immediate help. France responded with a mandate from the United Nations and sent troops on the ground to fight these terrorist groups. And this French presence, France fought with others, not alone, with African countries, African troops coming from the countries in the neighborhood, and later with others. And there is now a UN peacekeeping operation.
Okay.
But the French experience fighting terrorism in Mali enabled France to develop the French expertise, French experience, French knowledge of the realities of the region. And we witnessed this link between terrorist groups and trafficking. And the movement, we also saw that when they are fought in a country, these terrorist groups can move to another one. And inside this Sahelo-Saharan strip, their borders, international borders, it's very difficult for the state to control their borders.
Sure. This is what President Francois Hollande, the person who mandated you to Cameroon, has said. Quote, France can intervene only in an exceptional moment, for an exceptional and limited period. Take the Central African Republic, take Cote d'Ivoire. The situation has always been chaotic. Africans need security for the moment to combat terrorism and increasing wars. The new French presence in Africa, should we consider it a success?
Charles, I cannot agree with you. Just look at Mali. Mali and Central African Republic. Mali, as I said, we were called for help. We came, we sent forces with a UN mandate, and the situation has improved. the terrorist group have been largely, their presence, their strength has been largely diminished. They are not fully eradicated. That's why we keep forces in Mali, and that's why also international forces are there. Take Central African Republic. Last year, nobody was caring about Central African Republic. There were plenty of armed groups there, fighting among themselves, killing people, using religion to increase antagonism against the people. We were at the brink of large-scale massacres, of genocide. We considered it was our duty to let the world know about that, and we couldn't stay idle. We sent troops with a UN mandate from the Security Council, Operation Sangaris, and today we supported the African mission, MISCA, with Cameroonian troops. They were already there. They were already doing their best to secure the situation in Central Africa.
I have some questions to ask you.
Today,
you know, Madam Ambassador, 30 seconds, you come in. You know very well that Central African, the people of the Central African Republic have said that these weapons which are found in their country which created chaos came from France. These are people from the Central African Republic. And they have equally said that, okay, if the French don't leave, we will not have peace in our country. Why do you think that they are suspicious of you people? These are questions. I'm just simply reading what the people say.
I cannot deny what you said.
You deny their perception.
I deny the fact that weapons came from France. This is not true. And please let me come back to what I was saying.
You can.
Today, thanks to the efforts conducted by the African troops, MISCA, with the support of Sangaris, the French troops, there is a real improvement in the security situation in Central African Republic. Calm is not is not restored all over the country, but there is a great improvement, and there is now conditions to enter to the following step after stabilization of the country is reconciliation.
This is what Neil Bowe. Neil Bowe is a columnist with Russia Today and is equally a research fellow at the International Movement for Justice or Just in the World. This is what he says. It remains highly documented that members of Al-Qaeda and the Libyan Islamic Fighting Group who fought among the Libyan rebels directly received arms and logistical support from NATO bloc countries during the Libyan conflict in 2011. He writes this article in a website called Global Research, where articles are published, and it is dated April 11, 2012. Is it possible to deny that when you were fighting, when the French proposed the invasion of Libya through a no-fly zone in areas like Bani Wali, Misrata?
We must remember that Libya was a country where huge quantities of weapons were stockpiled during the Gaddafi era.
Where did they buy them? Because they don't produce weapons.
There were huge quantities of weapons, and Gaddafi was distributing weapons to many groups all over Africa and perhaps elsewhere. And today there is terrorism is present in Libya. There is a very chaotic situation. That's true.
Are you happy to see Libya today?
That's true. Sorry?
Are you happy to see what Libya is today?
Of course not.
Okay.
Of course not. Nobody in France regrets Gaddafi. Gaddafi was a dictator who bombed its own people.
Let me come back to what France is doing, especially with Boko Haram, and here I narrow it to Cameroon. What will be the French contribution? And here, Madam Ambassador, I beg you, I need concrete diplomatic, military, and intelligence examples. What would France concretely do to make sure that the Cameroon-Nigeria border is not a harbor for terrorism?
Yes, you mentioned yourself the initiative taken by President François Hollande to call for a summit in Paris of the heads of state of the region, Nigeria, Cameroon, Chad, Niger and Benin. And and why did President Hollande call for this summit? Because of our perception of the dangers, the threats of Boko Haram for not only Nigeria, but the whole region. And this is due to what we have seen in the strategy of this terrorist group, using extreme violence against people, ignoring borders, and trying to take control of territories. So this is a very dangerous threat, and to fight efficiently this threat, there is a need of close coordination between the countries victims of Boko Haram terrorist activities, and by calling them to come together to Paris and to exchange their analysis and their plans to fight. We also provided support to facilitate the coordination. And I can mention one very concrete decision which was made in Paris and which is being implemented now to fight efficiently against such a terrorist organization.
Okay.
Using violence in different countries, there is a need to share, to coordinate, and to share intelligence. The decision was made during the meeting in Paris to create an intelligence fusion cell, which is now has been put in place in Abuja with experts from the different countries, plus French experts, plus American and British experts.
I just want to know the amount of cash the French government is investing, is injecting in this global war on terrorism. The Cameroonian leader, Paul Biya, declared the war on Boko Haram from the French capital. How much are you investing in terms of cash?
I can give you the figure of what France spent during the present year for defense and security cooperation in Africa. It's 210 million euros for the year. This is to fund our cooperation to train African officers, African soldiers, to provide different kind of expertise. And Cameroon is one of the first beneficiaries in Africa of this cooperation.
Why?
Because we have a long date cooperation with Cameroon, and in Cameroon you have the Cameroon state has some military schools where military officers from Cameroon and from other African countries are trained together, and France is providing support to these programs. it's in the, you know, the plan, Africa has plans to deal with African issues without the support of others. This is for the future, and this is a will which France supports very strongly. It has been very clearly said again during the last summit in Élysée in Paris last December. So France supports the plans of the African Union and African states to build African standby forces and African forces to immediate response to crisis. And this needs a lot of training of...
so you are investing so much in the domain
yeah.
of education? Because one factor which has been identified
for
the training.
For the training,
okay.
for military training.
Okay.
And this is to support the African plans to build African capacities to respond, to deal with African crises.
Okay. On a trip to Iraq, your president, Francois Hollande, said there are French people, citizens who have traveled to Iraq, to Syria, to fight alongside members of the Islamic State. And since it is an umbrella association, you heard the other day some of them giving support to other terrorist groups across the world. How many of them may have crossed to become members of Boko Haram, to become members of Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb, to become members of Ansaro? You know, these are terrorist groups surrounding Cameroon. How many of them may have crossed?
This is a real concern for France and for other European governments and for other governments all over the world. And last week, Security Council took a resolution to compel states to take all possible action to avoid young people being recruited, radicalized and recruited.
Okay.
This is a real concern for us today, France,
okay.
because it seems from the informations I have that there are recruitment operations led by people linked with Daesh in Syria and Iraq to recruit young French men and women, to bring them to Syria and Iraq, to brainwash them, to train them, to use them to commit violences, and to even send them back to perpetrate terrorist actions in the country from which they come. Though this is exporting and globalizing the threat. That's why we take it very seriously.
Okay.
And the government of France took measure. The figure I have is that around 1,000 people from France have been like this recruited by Daesh. I have no figures regarding, it doesn't seem that we have the same phenomenon.
Okay.
I have no information of that,
okay.
of young French people joining Boko Haram. This doesn't seem to be the case.
Okay.
But laws have been voted, measures have been taken in order to avoid this and to sanction those who are involved in this.
Christine Robichon, France's ambassador to Cameroon, your presence here today was historic and symbolic because you are the first French ambassador since independence and reunification to grant a one-on-one interview with an English-speaking Cameroonian journalist. Thanks very much for accepting our invitation.
Thank you, Charles.
You are welcome.